welcome. Digitalization is emerging as a survive and thrive tool in the crisis and is credibly poised to shake up the global transport and logistics sectors. In the COVID-19 pandemic, delivering the right product to the right customer in the right quantity and right condition at the right place, price, and time has become nearly impossible. At the same time, the risk of running out of supply is never larger than during this crisis. But there is always inspiration and creativity that we can find. There will undoubtedly be many lessons that emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, but a big one for business will certainly be the necessity of strategically planned, thoughtfully implemented digital transformation as the only way to survive this crisis and future ones. And that is precisely the topic of discussion in today's webinar, with an incredibly diverse panel of speakers joining from India, Europe, and the US, representing companies that have customers spread across all continents. I'm extremely pleased to welcome Amar. He is the Chief Executive Officer, Kale Logistics Solutions. Over to Amar.
Yeah. So very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you, Reggie. Thank you, Stat Times, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. I'm Amar More. I'm the CEO. Reggie referred to me as CEO of Kale. CEO means Chief Entertainment Officer for all of you, because I really get entertained by what's happening around me in the industry, right? So next slide, please. So today we will just discuss very briefly on COVID-19 and how is it related to the digital transformation in air cargo. I personally believe, it's a superstition, right? This industry has always moved to the next orbit of digitization when something bad has happened. In 2000, we all remember the 9/11 attacks, and then there was this whole impetus on providing advanced data. Automated manifest system in the US came up, and then ENS systems came up in the European Union, and then the industry had to adjust to create, digital documents. So that was one. I think Yemen happened, and then the industry moved into preloading advanced cargo information, and now we have pandemic, right? So not a good thing to say, but this I'm sure will bring. Every adversity brings opportunity. So this will bring another opportunity for industry to move to the third orbit, right, in the last 2 decades. Okay, so we'll just see how this is going to transform some of the areas of air cargo. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a joke going on everywhere. I'm sure you would have received this as well. Who led the digital transformation of your company? Is it the Chief Technology Officer, a CEO like me, or COVID-19? And most people say it's COVID-19, right? Because believe me, with my company, I never imagined I will have 100% productivity with everybody working from home. Okay, ever since the lockdowns happened in India, everyone just took to this new way of working as fish takes to water. So this is very heartening, and some of this transformation which happened internally to an IT company gives me a lot of hope that as an industry we can really move forward with digital transformation. Next slide, please. So let me just simplify this whole thing. Let's say pandemic, and how will it lead to digital transformation? What does it mean? Okay, so on the left hand side you see that COVID-19, it's known, the virus is known to stay on paper for up to 4 days. Okay, in order to avoid the spread of the virus, we have to avoid all types of crowd or congestion, so that this virus doesn't spread. And we call it social distancing, and there are several protocols being put into place, right? Then lockdown. Okay, in most countries there is lockdown, and this increases the need to get work done without visiting your own office or without visiting your customers' offices. And we all understand that, except for the airlines who are maybe on better technology, there's this whole air cargo supply chain which is still using technology that requires you to access given computers, etc. And they're going to suffer with these lockdown scenarios when they're not going to visit their offices or the customers' offices to get the work done, right? And then finally, as an industry, we all know that the revenues are down significantly because 65% of the world's air cargo moves through passenger bellies. And when those aircrafts are not flying, there's a significant pressure on revenues. And this essentially means a lot of players, if they have to survive in the market, then reducing cost without affecting services significantly. I mean, it's a bit of a balance thing. That's a must. So these are the things that COVID-19, imposes upon you, right? Now, how does this result into, let's say, opportunities for digitization, right? So let's take the first one. So since the virus stays on paper, it is very important. I mean, you would have heard the term war on terror. So there is a war on paper. I mean, this was a term coined by, one of my close friends from WFS, Chuck, and I really liked it. So this war on paper has to really intensify, okay? Because if the virus is going to, spread through paper, then the less paper you use or the less paper is handled, the better is the better is the ability to contain the virus, right? Secondly, any types of crowd or congestion. So if you visit a cargo complex, you will see a lot of people moving around, trucks moving around, people standing near documentation counters, etc., of the handlers of the airlines, so on and so forth, right? Now this has to reduce significantly, okay? And this is the demand that most of the airports with whom we are working on digitization, this is their primary demand. So anything that can, avoid this kind of congestion of people, congregation of people, or congestion of trucks helps. I mean, we have Sarah here who has a brew cloud. We give community systems to several, airports and ports globally. So you have, the appointment scheduling kind of systems, that kind of streamline the traffic flow. Those are the things that will be in demand as we move forward. Then lockdown means, people, if they have to be productive, then they should be able to access their systems from, wherever they are, either their own homes or, their girlfriend or boyfriend's homes, right? Wherever they are. So if that has to be done, then you need to really, give them software as a service or, web-based systems that can be accessed from anywhere, anytime. And I'll tell you some of the heartening success stories that we saw during this pandemic times that really, really differentiated companies. Those who had those kind of systems could, operate at near the full efficiency. Others, couldn't operate at all. So I think pandemic has shown us that, this kind of systems will have to be there in place. And finally, if you want to reduce cost, without really affecting services, then it has to be smart. So a smart way of savings, has to be achieved to deal with the pandemic and post-pandemic era. So in a nutshell, essentially, you need technology-enabled services that can transform air cargo processes to, one, exchange documents digitally, so you reduce the paper handling, schedule and plan appointments, or your trips to the cargo terminals, etc., so that you avoid congestion. You have SaaS-based tools, that can enable people to work from anywhere and work 24/7, and then you have to reduce inefficiency. So this is, in a nutshell, what the pandemic brings to fore for all of us in terms of digitization. Next slide, please. Okay, but you would say, okay, this is, all 50,000 feet level stuff. What does it mean? When I go after this seminar, after spending my valuable 1.5 hours, and I go back in my cargo business, which are the areas, that I can digitally transform, okay? So number one, as I said, and a lot of these are related to COVID again. So truck and human congestion reduction at airports. So I'll be just showing you a very quick video of an innovation that we brought in. We all know that EDI has been in existence for donkey's year, but still, in most places in the world, in Western Europe, US, Asia Pacific, the trucker still goes with the paper at the handler's facility and stands there and gives the documents for the data to be going into the handler's system, because only the large players are able to transmit the data using EDI. Others do not have that capability to do so. So we looked at this issue and we said, for the small to medium scale enterprises who cannot invest in EDI for whatever reason, we have to find out a commonsensical solution for them. So converting system generated PDF files into system data that can be used by the airlines or the handlers is something that will make sure that before the truck reaches the terminal, the data reaches there. So the person who is bringing the paper to the counter, first of all, the paper handling will get reduced. Secondly, his time at the counter will get reduced, and both will address safety of the trucker as well as the airline or the handler staff. Okay. So this is one area that can get transformed. And I have a short clip that I will show you, because I believe in movies. PPTs are too insipid and boring for me. Okay. Second is, paper exchange for delivery orders. So, in most places in the world, and we digitize, about 80 cargo terminals globally. This whole process of delivering cargo or delivery orders is still paper-based. I mean, of course, there are some innovations that are brought in there, but there is still a lot of paper, that is getting exchanged. This process can be moved completely digital, and that is something that will help again in reducing number of trips to the airlines offices or to the handlers facilities, and that will indeed make sure that people are safe and more efficient. The third one is the most flogged horse of air cargo industry, electronic air waybill, and I won't spend too much time on that. But using similar technology, and in fact, in these times, when you really want to reduce the paper handling, electronic air waybill, so data capture to do electronic air waybill, is something that can be transformed significantly. Because if the airlines put up portals, or if there are portals where people have to go and do duplicate data entry, they don't like that, and that's the reason why we are struggling with e-airwaybill adoption. So there is a commonsensical solution based on robotic process automation and artificial intelligence, that we have come up with, that can do that. And the last one is, this success story that I wanted to talk about. The certificate of origin. There are several certificates that are required to move air cargo, and we usually restrict our thinking to airway bill, but that's not all. You need all these other documents. Ever since pandemic happened, we have seen that exporters are accessing our platforms for issuance of this. This platform was put in 3 years back, but we have seen the adoption go 8 times in last 2 months, 8 times. And what we also realized is another value is that now that these tools are available and exporters can go back to their factories and they have to ship a lot of pharma goods, a lot of medical supplies, etc., they are working even on weekends. Now, typically, all these chambers of commerces which issued this certificate of origins, they just work Monday to Friday, 10 to 5. But now, because this process is transformed and made completely digital, the business is happening 24/7. So these are some very specific transformation areas, that will see efficiencies coming in. And, now it's the movie time. So I'll just show you one clip, which kind of, so we can't hear the sound. Can you just make sure that the sound is, can you just stop the video and make sure that the sound is there? Okay, I'll just go on. Fair enough. If you can. Yeah. All right. So you can, I mean, this was the last slide. I think, Reggie, if we find time towards the end, we can see if the sound can be played, because, without sound, it's not so interesting. But this is one example of a transformation, how a process is transformed so that advanced data is made available to handler. That reduces the queues at the documentation, that reduces the trucking queues as well, and you move on to a more efficient process. Like this, this industry after this pandemic is really going to move on to several transformed processes, and I'm very optimistic about it. Thank you so much.
Thanks. You had a product which was in your shelf for some time, but you never found a buyer. But all of a sudden, you found a buyer as soon as the COVID-19 and the deal happened virtually on a few calls and on video conferencing, and you have more interest coming in from the other players, particularly from the airport ground handlers.
No, absolutely, Reggie. I mean, Ashok spoke about survival digitalization, and I like that term, right? We also saw growth digitalization or growth digitization opportunities here. As I said, we actually did our fastest sale in Kale's history, 3 days flat. It was a charter operator, who was making hell lot of money and a lot of business, because charters, obviously, this is a good time to be in that business. And they did not have the staff due to the lockdown, etc., to process the documentation of all those shipments. And you saw that video on the ping service, right? There's no upfront cost. There's a trial. If it works for you, it works. If it doesn't, you don't have to worry about it. He went for it, and in 3 days he was online. So he was processing his documents, and then that success story kind of spread, and now we have inquiries from North America, Europe, Asia Pacific for this kind of services. So it always worked for us in Thailand, in India, but we never thought that it had a utility globally. And this is what this pandemic's gift to us, probably. And same thing I told you about this certificate issuance, right? Earlier the process was that somebody had to go to the chamber's office with the documents, stand in the queue, get the documents verified, make the payments. Lunchtime happens. After lunch, go to the issuance counter, get the document, and go back, right? Now with the pandemic and lockdown, this process doesn't work, and the certificate of origin is required. So we had transformed this process digitally, and we saw 8 times adoption of that process, and people working on the weekends as well to get this done. So this is definitely, as I said, adversities bring opportunity, and it's my superstition and belief that for air cargo industry, this will be the next level of digitization that we will see.
Thanks, but Amar, is the people willing to invest? Is there a hard negotiation that happens, or
No, Reggie. Just like what Maurice mentioned, right? If you have low barriers to entry, if you're willing to give free trials, and if they don't have to invest anything upfront, okay, then it's not a problem at all, because then whether you're doing it for survival or for managing growth, you can just try it out. And I think that's what is working for us, like Moritz. So
Amar, I just want to get you, because you based in Mumbai, and look at the investment that has come in Geo platform, for example. A few years back, when he actually launched Geo, we had actually seen, and he launched it just before the national festival Diwali, for example. They actually found that there has been a 11% jump in the online purchase, for example, and predominantly because the Geo platform, which allowed a broadband connectivity, higher speed, and it was made available free, for example. And today he's looking at an India super app, something like WeChat, where you can purchase, do everything, integrate your Instagram, Facebook, and other social media platforms. Where do you see? And I think this is And Mukesh Ambani, as we know, he can get into any sector as he like, for example. So he has the capital. How do you look at that in terms of a digital strategy, a digital transformation journey?
No, I think, as you rightly said, Reggie, Reliance has been setting benchmarks not just for India, but for the world. I don't know if you guys know the story. I don't have enough time to tell that. But
Yeah, we
even
don't
the
have enough time.
telecom revolution was brought in by them. And I think, the e-commerce space, if they get into this space, then this is going to change forever because their model is a little different from others. They want to make all those smaller shops that are there everywhere across Mumbai or India as their partners, and then deliver from there. So, which is fantastic, and I think that's going to change the industry forever. And when this kind of goods start moving, then they definitely need digital platforms. They definitely need good logistics infrastructure. So I think this impact is going to be phenomenal on the logistics industry in general.
So, question from Nishant Jain. I think this question can be answered by Amar, Ashok, and Moritz. It's about what do you think would be the approximate cost as a percentage of revenue or profit that a freight forwarding company should allocate for making itself digital?
I mean, I can tell you the industry average. So, there are a lot of statistics, but anywhere between 3 to 6% of your revenues is what people should be investing in technology. I mean, over a period across several studies, several reports, clearly those like FedExes, etc., they have a much higher percentage of their revenues, which goes into, IT investments, but the industry average is anywhere between 3 to 10.
Let's get the final closing comments from each one of you very quick. Uh, how do you see in the coming months? No one knows when it is going to end. For example, uh, does anyone get the feeling that there would be a pushback on any of the digital strategies, digital initiatives that you see among your customers in the air freight industry, or would you see a higher push towards much better digital strategy across the air freight industry? And that could be your final thoughts on this webinar.
So Reggie,
Yeah.
I said this before in the webinar. I think it's not just my thinking. If you look back at the history, this kind of things have always pushed digitization. There is no way anyone can go back. Those who couldn't access systems, those whose staff couldn't work, cannot think of living in the same atmosphere right now. They will have to think digital. So it's likely to grow. There will be a new normal, and whatever we'll implement for social distancing will become the new normal. So all those digitization tools, etc., they will become the new normal, is my firm belief.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful webinar with interesting topics of discussion, interesting perspectives coming from different directions. Let's keep the conversation going on, and let's make sure that we champion the cause of digitalization or accelerating the digitalization process within the industry. Once again, thank you all. Have a nice day.